to the In the Huddle YouTube channel. Today we will be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, the number 29 ranked team in my preseason power rankings. If you want to know more about what I put into consideration when making my preseason power rankings, make sure to watch the first episode where we discuss the number 32 team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the Jaguars. The Jaguars head coach is Doug Marrone, who is more of a defensive-oriented coach, and he was their coach on their playoff run they had a few years ago, in I believe 2017. They were a drive or two away from making the Super Bowl. Since then, they have not done good at all, and they've lost a ton of pieces, and they're rebuilding now. Now let's look at the quarterback position and see who's leading the way for them. I have them ranking as number 22 quarterback room, and I think Gardner Minshew can be the guy for him. They took him in the 6th round last year, and I think he has all the tools you need from a great quarterback. He's really good at sensing pressure, he's a great playmaker, his mobility helps him when the play breaks down, and he is a really good processor. His accuracy can be inconsistent at times, but most of the time, he's really reliable. Behind him, they have Mike Glennon, who's been a career backup way past his prime. Then they have Jake Luton, who's way more of a pocket passer. He has a nice processor. He could make the team as a number 2 quarterback, but Minshew is leading the way. If Minshew gets hurt, the Jaguars are basically done for the year. And even if they have a rank as a number 29th team, that doesn't mean I don't think they're the worst team, like standings-wise. I don't think they're going to do very well, and they could very well have the worst record in the league. Now let's look at the running back room, where I have them ranking 22nd as well, and leading the way is Leonard Fournette. Fournette has had injury concerns his whole career, and he's been a solid starter. He's a 2-down back, though. He doesn't complement well with Gardner Minshew, as Minshew would do much better with a running back who can make catches out of the backfield and is actually a run after the catch threat. Fournette is like a 20th century running back. He doesn't fit the new current style of running backs. Behind him we have Chris Thompson, who's just had so many injuries. He is a nice receiving back, but it drops off even more, as after him they have Raquel Armstead, who's a shifty running back. He was a late-round pick last year. Then they have Ozigbo, who's solid depth for them. Now they have the wide receiver and tight end room, which I have ranking 28th. I think this is actually a really good room, and even if I have them ranking 28 now, this could go up to like 20 or 19. They have DJ Chark, who was a really good deep threat for Minshew last year, and they had a great connection. I think he has number 1 wide receiver potential, and I wouldn't be shocked if after this year, he's considered a top 15 wide receiver. Then they have D.D. Westbrook, who's a good route runner, great athlete, but he's not really stepped up into what we thought he could be. Then they have Chris Conley, who's solid depth. Him and Keelan Cole are kind of similar. Then they drafted Laviska Shenault in the 2nd round, and I think this is a really good selection for the Jaguars. They have Chark as that deep threat. Shenault can be the underneath guy that becomes Minshew's favorite target. He has great hands, and he's really athletic. Then they took Colin Johnson in the 5th round, who's a 6'6" wide receiver. He's not that athletic, and if he doesn't pan out as a decent wide receiver, maybe he could play tight end. That's up in the air if that would work out. Now let's look at the tight ends, which really brings down the ranking. They got Tyler Eifert out of free agency. I don't think he's going to do anything for them. He's been injured so much in the last few years of his career from Cincinnati. He is a solid blocker, solid all-around player, but it's unlikely he is what he used to be. Then they have Josh Oliver, who they drafted in the 3rd round last year. That was not a very good selection. He needs to develop a lot. Not a good blocker, not a good route runner. He's just an athlete, but he hasn't developed enough where you can play him and expect him to do good. Then they have James O'Shaughnessy, who's a do-it-all tight end. He can block for you, catch for you, and that about wraps up the tight end room. It's a really disappointing room, but now we're going to move on to the defensive line, where I have ranking, not defensive line, offensive line, which I have ranking 17th. Their tackles need a lot of work. Cam Robinson just has not done well. Jawan Taylor can actually develop, though, and he had a decent rookie year. They drafted him in the second round last year, and I wouldn't be shocked if he can become something. They took Ben Barch, who could fight for the starting left tackle job with Cam Robinson. They have Will Richardson as depth. The Jaguars have one of the better interior offensive line trios, I guess. Brandon Linder's a really good center. Same with Andrew Norwell. A.J. Cannon is a solid veteran. They don't really have much depth after those three guys in the interior offensive lineman group. I have them ranking 17th. It's a good group. Tackles aren't that great. They need to develop a little more. But that's about it. Let's move on to the defense now, where we're going to look at the interior defensive line first, which I have ranking 27th. Leading the way is Taven Bryan, who they selected in the first round a few years ago. This is a make it or break it year for him, a prove it year. He's solid against the run, decent pass rusher, but his biggest issue is he's super inconsistent. He's not been able to prove he can be that steady player the Jaguars need. Then they have a really good, I guess you can say, trio of veterans. They got Al Woods and Gunter, who are a good veteran presence. And then they have R.B. Jones, who did really good for them last year against the run. And this could be a really good run defense, just depends on how the coaching goes. Then they have Devon Hamilton, who was a nice third-round pick for them. And he's also an older player, too. When he was taken, he's like 22, 23. Let's move on to the pass rush now, where we're going to first look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen he's good against the run, too. He also was a really good pass rusher for the Jaguars. They drafted Kayvon Chisholm around like 18. He's really raw, but he needs to develop. He's similar to Ngakoue in a way. Very explosive, long arms, powerful. And one thing I want to note right now is I'm not including Ngakoue in this ranking, as I believe he'll probably be traded. And it just has not worked out. There seems to be a lot of bad blood between Ngakoue and the Jaguars front office, but I don't think can be fixed. After Chesson and Allen, there's Dewan Smoot, who's a solid piece. He's a rotational pass rusher. I think he's on the last year of his deal. And then they have Aaron Lynch, who's a veteran player. He's more of a power rusher. Now let's look at the Jaguars linebackers, which I think is actually a really good room. I have them ranking 12th. They have a really good duo in Myles Jack and Joe Schobert. Myles Jack is more aggressive, very athletic, and he's a high-end starter. He hasn't proven to be like a top 10 linebacker like we hoped he would, but he can become that in a year or two. They signed Joe Schobert to a bigger deal, but he's more of a conservative linebacker, better in zone coverage, and he doesn't bite as much in play action. Behind him we have Cassius Marsh, who's played in the scheme before with Seattle. He's been on a lot of teams, just bouncing around the league. They drafted Shaq Quarterman, who's more of a thumper linebacker, really good against the run, gonna make your key tackles. Then they have a trio of interesting linebackers in Quincy Williams, Leon Jacobs, and Joe Giles Harris. Quincy Williams is more of like a safety linebacker hybrid. Leon Jacobs can rush the passer. He can cover for you. He can do it all. And they have Giles Harris, who's more of just an athletic linebacker. He's depth for them. It's a really deep linebacking room, and it goes downhill from here. I have your cornerback room ranking 32nd, the worst in the league. Someone has to have it. I give it to Jacksonville. And it's not a good room. They have C.J. Henderson, who I think is going to be their number one corner. First round pick. He's a solid cornerback. I think he can do good. But like all rookie cornerbacks, he's going to be inconsistent at times. He needs to develop. They have Trey Herndon, who I think can be the number 2. He was good when he played, not great. He was solid, average. And they have DJ Hayden playing slot cornerback for them. Him and Josiah Scott are going to be fighting for that job. Then they have Rashawn Melvin, who's the number 3 outside corner. He is decent depth. Not that great. Like, they don't have that corner who you don't want to target. Or they don't have anyone in that secondary who you have to watch out for. Let's look at their safeties now. I have them ranking 30th. Not a good secondary at all. This offense is the better part of this team. Or you can even say the secondary is the worst part. The front 7 for the Jaguars is really good. But the secondary just is a letdown. They have Ronnie Harrison, who's a good tackler, and it's kind of a Cam Chancellor in this cover-free defense. Defense that the Falcons run, the Seahawks run. But he's not that good in coverage. Then they have Gerard Wilson. He's a below-average safety. He's decent. He probably will be starting for them. And they have Andrew Wingard, who was an undrafted free agent last year. He's not that athletic, but he might be able to do something for them. Unlikely. Then they have Daniel Thomas, who is someone to watch out for. He was a 5th-round pick. He's a good tackler, and he's solid in coverage. So he could take the starting spot over Ronnie Harrison if Harrison disappoints. So now that we're done the player review portion of the Jaguars, let's move on to their schedule. Now, I do have the Jaguars ranked above the Redskins, the Bengals, and the Dolphins, but I have them going 3-13, which is worse than some of those teams. But I do think Jacksonville is a better team. They just have a tougher schedule. Now, let's look at their schedule game by game and see maybe winnable games that I just didn't give them. They host the Colts week 1. That is a winnable game. I just don't think they'll have much of an answer for the weapons of the Colts. Who's going to be stopping T.Y. Hilton? They have Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell if he can have a breakout year. Not good matchup for them. Then I have them losing in Tennessee. I have them winning their first game against Miami. First game of the season against Miami, week 3. Then they play the Bengals week 4 in Cincinnati. I gave that to the Bengals. Then they play the Texans on the road. I gave that to Houston. Then they host the Lions. This is a winnable game, but if Stafford is healthy, I think he can lead the Lions to win in this game. Then they play the Chargers in LA. I gave that one to the Chargers. Then they hosted the Texans. I gave them that one. And they start off 2-6. And that's not a good start, but the ending is worse in my opinion. They have to play the Packers in Green Bay. That's a loss for me. Then they host the Steelers and Browns. I think they can beat the Browns. So that would make them 4-12 at this point. And if they beat the Colts 5-11, that's 2 games. Then they play the Vikings week 12 in Minnesota. I'm not going to give them that one. Then they host the Titans. That's winnable. So then they have to go back on the road against Baltimore. Not a favorable matchup. I'm giving them the loss there. Then they host the Bears. And that is a potential win. So they'd be 6-10 or 7-9 if we give them a few more. Then they play the Colts in Indianapolis. I feel like the Colts will be fighting for playoff positioning at this point. So Colts will have more reason to be competing in this game, not just for a draft position. And the Jaguars are probably going to be looking at quarterbacks if Minshew can't lead them to a solid record, even if he is a solid quarterback. But they do have potential to play spoiler this week and mess up the Colts' playoff chances. But that's unlikely. So let me know what you think of the Jaguars, and if you agree with my rankings, what was too high, what was too low. Subscribe, like, and have a great day.